I think what the Gen Z folks really want is they want to know why.
Yeah.
They're not just don't tell me to just go and do this.
Don't tell
Why?
me why.
Do you know what I
Give me
mean?
reasons why I should.
Of course, and I
Yeah.
think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I went to do outreach, mental health outreach in like some rural area, and like I remember I was talking to some guy, and the guy was like, looked at me and said, "Bro, you dey talk mental health. I never chop."
Local stories, global insights. This is the OyaGistme Podcast with Shinedu Idigo and Meglina Otu. Thank you for tuning in.
Life totally gets boring when there's no gist to keep you going. My name is Shinedu Idigo. Co-hosting with me is
Meglina Otu.
This is the OyaGistme Podcast, where we come together and talk about global insights and local stories, giving you more insights on what happens around you and your vicinity, and see how we can bring you to recognize the brand Oya Now. You know, Oya Now has come a long way, but we feel we need to throw more insights and give you more gist. So you could go download the app and then, get used to it. Today in the house, we have Jakpo Therayven. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome on board.
We're having a conversation around generations and how they collide, how generations come together to, make the world a better place. We're just going to throw more insights in the different generations and their restrictions and their, shortcomings and how far they've come and how they've helped us become better, yeah? I mean, from our parents, our grandparents, and where we are today. Yeah. So you're a fashion designer, you're a mental health coach, you're an entrepreneur, amongst other things, yeah? Which of these things do you think you do more?
So I wouldn't say I'm a fashion designer.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I'm a fashion enthusiast.
Okay.
And I'm very particular about like African fashion.
Oh,
Okay.
For me, it's like I feel culturally it's one of the ways that you tell your own story. Right?
Okay.
Like the way you dress. Like I went to Commonwealth University, and one of the things they used to tell us is the way you dress is the way you
You are dressed, yeah.
So for me, I approach fashion from a way of telling stories. Right?
Okay, so looking at the generations so far, we had different generations here. I'm currently a millennial. Do you fall under the millennial too?
I guess I would say that.
Okay.
Yes.
So which of the generations do you think walk in line with your, with you being a fashion enthusiast?
So I think for me, I don't know if I'd subscribe to the generational divide per se. I feel like we're more connected than we accept.
Okay.
So for me, I see the fashion side a bit more differently, right? Back in the day, I feel like maybe African fashion was a bit more conservative for sure. But what we're seeing now is like the new generation is a bit more outspoken, bold,
loud.
trying out new styles. But at the same time, I feel like with everything, like things evolve, right? So I like the simplicity of like fashion of before, but then I also enjoy like a bit of the eccentric nature of like new fashion.
So exploring your entrepreneurial side here, you've been with Oya Now for how long now?
So I think I've been using Oyana since it started.
Okay.
And my wife as well, she's very active.
Okay.
So she does most of the ordering, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
But I've enjoyed it, right? I feel like one of the things I enjoy about it is the diversity of offerings, right?
Okay.
So typically when you see products like this or services like this, it's like they focus on like, okay, maybe you can just order food.
Yeah.
So but then with Oyana, it's like we buy our groceries there sometimes, right?
Yeah.
If we want other things outside restaurants, we can get it. So for me, that's one of the things I've enjoyed the most.
Okay.
How have they helped you being, in the entrepreneurial space? Is it easier for Oya Now to, help you get to your clients and then connect back to you? Do you have challenges? Is there, part of them you feel they could do better?
To be honest, I feel like with everything in life, there's also opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
But I'll start from what it is I feel they've done for me. It's like they've shortened a lot of processes for me.
Okay.
Right? In terms of if I'm in a situation where I need to get food really quickly and I don't have the bandwidth or there's nobody around to help me get it, like they do that. I've been in a couple of meetings where we need to get food for the people there, and just so I like the fact that like it shortens a lot of processes for us. But I think it's an interesting product. But to be honest, I feel one of the things I liked the most when the brand first came out was the name.
Oh, the name Oya Now.
Oya Now.
It's like a regular question, like Oya Now. Let's do this.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's a phrase that I like. Like so, for me, it's like Oya Now means like let's go.
No.
Yeah.
And
Let's
like,
get it done.
so like it's something I use in a lot of my conversations. It's like I say something like Oya Now. us journey. So I like that about it. I feel there's an intentionality about that.
So, coming into the area of you being a mental health advocate, what's your take on the view? What do you view the Gen Zs? That's a generation that we're currently. I feel like everybody has something to say about them. What's your view on their way of life?
So I think like every generation, they've been shaped, or they're constantly shaped by the content they consume.
Yeah.
Right. And they, in some directions as well, they're shaped by the interaction with generations before them.
Yeah.
Mainly the parents and the parenting style. I think back in the day, there was a bit more emphasis on things like discipline. There was a bit more emphasis on so I saw something like, so this conversation, I think I would have addressed it differently a couple of days ago, but then I saw a video and a Gen Z girl was trying to explain, she was trying to explain her thought process and saying that like, yo, do not feel angry at us because we don't want to glamorize suffering. Right?
Okay.
Do not feel angry at us because we don't feel the need to suffer before we grow. Right? And I get that, right? And I don't feel like it's right for us to judge them in that capacity. However, there's a flip side to it as well. Is I believe that there's something that the processes do for you. There's something that being on a journey does for you. And I think, even though I agree with some of the aspects that you're talking about, but I feel like the fact that they're not thinking about the process can affect a lot of things.
Of course,
Because I feel there's a lot of growth in the journey.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
I mean, grow, learn.
Yeah. And then from the mental health aspect as well, it's like, so when I started this mental health conversations, like I remember one of the people that used to give me the side eye, like my parents.
Yeah.
It's like, which one is all this mental health?
It's like an LP.
Yeah, like which one is all this one? I like, dude, suck it up or whatever. And I remember always trying to convince my dad. I think my dad was a bit more receptive. My mom, because she's a teacher, right? She's a principal. She's more about like, yo, you gotta do what is happening. But then with time, one of the things that I'm seeing is different now is they're starting to see that like maybe, right, if they were a bit different with how they approach things. And then starting to see like the influence that the way they were parented, like the way their parents treated them has affected them in some capacity as well. So I feel like it's a conversation that it's definitely it's definitely more, people are more open to it right now.
Yeah, because that was going to take me to my next question, which is, which generation do we think had the best parenting style?
Can you actually think?
So I to be honest, I like what you're saying. Like, I don't feel you can actually. So I'll just say what I feel. Parenting can be, right. I feel there's a need for firmness for sure.
Exactly.
Right. In my mental health conversation, it's like I'm never the one that would. Because there's that fear that people use mental health conversations
to cover a lot of things,
right? And I'm never the one to subscribe to that. But also on the flip side, I feel that like there's also a need for real conversations.
Sit down,
yes.
talk.
So in terms of the previous generations and I think one of the most defining difference is the fact that like in previous generations you're just told this is what you should do, but they don't tell you why
and how.
Yeah. So I think they tell you how sometimes.
Relating it with their own experience.
Yes, but they never tell you why, actually. Right? So what that does is, for the average person, if the parameters change, you don't know how to move.
Yeah.
As opposed to when you explain the why to them, is okay, if this is not available, then do this. I feel it gives you an opportunity to be more flexible. So what you find is like a lot of people from my generation are very rigid in the way that they think. Because it's like, this is what they've told us to do.
That's how
but then but because of a lack of understanding of the why, they're not able to move. And then you see that. I'll say this as well. So one of the things that really changed for me is I did my first degree in Nigeria, and then I went to school in the UK for my master's. And I remember in my first class in the UK, and I was sitting there, and I was the teacher, right? He was speaking to me, right? He was trying to explain to me the why of it, and I'm thinking like, wow, like I come from a
place where nobody actually
the why. Do you know what I mean? You just say like, dude, like
do this. This is what you should do.
Yes, and then you're judged based on your ability to assimilate a setting. But then this person was trying to make me engage with it and understand the why, because what that does for you gives you an opportunity to create your own narrative. And I feel like in this part of the world, one of the things that's making us struggle is we're not able to create our own narratives for ourselves.
There's no room for us.
Yeah. And then, to be honest, it's a very restricting feeling. And that's why you see, like, there's a lot of people that move around in Nigeria with a lot of suppressed emotions, right?
Really?
Yeah. And this is kind of what has pushed my drive for mental health awareness, because
people are listening.
Yeah. I went through my own personal struggles, and I went through a place where I was the only boy, first son, and
pressure.
Yeah, I felt this pressure, right? But there was a point where I can't remember what I did, and my dad calls me to the room, and he said to me, "Oh, do you know that I do not see you any differently from your sisters, right? Mm-hmm. All my children mean the same thing to me, right?" Although it felt like a way that he was making me feel sad, but then it was so liberating for me, because I just got to a point where I realized that, you know what, I can just be me.
Yeah,
right? I didn't have to. It's like, dude, I don't need you to save this family. I'm not living my yeah. So I realized, like, and I don't think my dad did it for that purpose, right? Yeah. But then the effect for me was such that, like, I realized the need to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I think what the Gen Z folks really want is they want to know why.
Yeah.
They're not just gonna, don't tell me to just go and do this.
Don't tell
why.
me why.
Give
me reasons why I should.
Of course, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So after the Gen Zs, we have the generation better.
Mm-hmm.
So do we think they can do better? Because I feel like we're losing our, culture-wise acceptability and all that stuff. Do you think they will take the culture forward?
I think they'll take the culture as far as the communication that we
build for them.
Yes. So
to consume.
Yeah, and that's why, to be honest, I like what it is that's being done here as well, is because I don't feel we have a lot of real conversations in this part of the world. I feel like we just shove things under the rug, and we're just looking for the easiest way out.
You and I know the economy actually do contribute to,
of course,
because your mental health is fucked up if the economy is
yeah. So to be honest, like, so I went to do mental health outreach in like some rural area, and like I remember I was talking to some guy, and the guy was like, looked at me and said, "Bro, you talk mental health. I never chop."
You never chop.
You never chop.
Just download the Oya now and then order for food.
Yeah, I mean, like, but obviously, Oya now is the great app, but that's the last thing that man. That's the last thing he's looking at. So I feel the need to say that, like, it's important for real conversations, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think we don't have real conversation, and you also see this is like in developed societies, right? The people are very comfortable asking the government questions, right? They ask questions, and when you question things, right, that's when you have the chance to improve, right? So what I think potentially the better generation, right, have is they're more curious than generation before them.
Yeah.
Right? So the quality of what they're able to do is going to be a function of the quality of questions they ask and the quality of questions the generation before them gives them.
So looking into what's currently happening in the economy right now. So you and I know it's the Generation X that sits in power, and the ones before them are still there. So do we think they've kind of flawed in their own time, and then knowing what they went through during their time, the kind of people they hung out with, and having them sit down in power right now that you and I exist, we're here. Do you think they should have done better?
I definitely think they will look back and think they could have, should have.
And being there now, seeing the next generations ahead of them.
Yeah.
They're real now.
So what I see, like, that's very prevalent in Africa is not even a question of generation or not. It's more a question of there's a very deep inherent poverty mentality, right? And this poverty mentality suggests that, like, whatever you have is never enough.
Exactly.
Right. So I feel like the generation before us, right, one of the things that is really scary is that they have a very insatiable appetite for taking.
Right?
And the problem with that is, like, when you're taking and you're not giving, you're insane. Yeah. And so I feel like, yes, they've done, but then they took more than they gave back.
Exactly.
Right. So I feel like the opportunities for other generations is to understand that there's a need for a healthy balance between giving and taking. And also I feel part of what is different is the approach to service. Right.
Okay.
And I say this because when you think about it, is in this part of the world, leaders don't really understand the fact that their first role is to serve. And when you serve, that's when you get the perks.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So it's not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You're not that people can sell the
Yes. So, to be honest, also, I feel yes, we can blame them too, but we can also learn from them as well, and also the generation before them. Because they sound like when I listen to how the country was back
in the days,
they were a bit pampered too. Right?
Yeah.
So because they got a lot of things easy.
That's
right.
right.
So
and they were so relaxed.
Yeah. So that's the thing about process that we're talking about earlier. It's like when you don't go through the process of creating, it's hard for you to create yourself. So that's what I feel it is. But then, to be honest, I feel like we can't keep on blaming
the previous
and also there's another thing that I've noticed too in this conversation about like leadership versus that. It's like the generations after, right, expect things to be given to them.
Okay.
Yes. So
you're correct.
And I think about you expect that, okay, yes, because it's supposed to be my generation, they should hand it over to us.
They should hand it over to us,
You need to position yourself to receive, right? I don't feel like the generations after have positioned themselves. We've made it easier for them to stay in power. That's a fact.
That's a fact.
So yes, on one hand, you can say they could have done better, but then the other hand is like, what have we done?
What have we done?
Because like
that's a big question.
Yeah. That's what I think.
So bringing it home, which generation do you think had it better growing up?
Definitely not mine.
Definitely not. Because we didn't have access to. I mean, my generation didn't have access to the internet.
But here's what I think really is like everything comes with the times, right? So in terms of what is obtainable, it wasn't too bad, right? For us, it wasn't too bad. Like looking at the price of things now versus when I was younger, right? I'm thinking like, you know what?
Back then,
I had it good. Right, like thinking about like the cost, like thinking about like what it costs to raise a child now
and then
versus, do you know what I mean? So I don't really know so I'm never the one to really subscribe to this versus this per se.
Okay.
I just feel like there's always a lesson that each generation can learn from the one before, and you as a generation you have to be very mindful. And things another thing I feel like we're not very mindful about is you realize that like the way that we see the world
is different.
It's sometimes a function of what the people before us are showing us.
Yeah.
So you also have to be mindful that like there are people coming on after you.
After you.
So so you also have to be mindful about that. And that's why in my own advocacy work, I'm very particular about having this conversation because I try to have conversations that I wish people had with me when I was
younger.
So I feel like regardless of what generation you belong to, you have to be mindful about the lessons you're picking up from those before you and what you're giving.
What you're giving.
So looking down on culture, do you think this generation after us, or the would practice the culture we leave behind? Is our cultures dying? Is our norms dying? Is
I feel like for sure our culture is
dying.
I won't say dying.
Is it being affected with the Western world?
So there's a couple of factors that I would ascribe this to. First of all is I feel we have a problem where we wait for the Western world to validate us before we accept our
culture. You understand?
Yes. So because of that, so for me, I always use music, for instance, right? Going to music, I remember Burna Boy has always been one of the most talented Nigerian African artists, but like nobody paid him any attention, right? We had certain perceptions about him. Burna Boy wins a Grammy.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, right? But then nothing really changed apart from the fact that the Western world validated him.
It's like we need the Grammy.
Yes. So I feel like part of why our culture is struggling is because we're waiting for Western validation, right? And then what is so interesting is like we see how the Western world acts. It's like they would undermine our value, undermine our art, and then you go to see some of the major museums internationally. You see African arts there.
Yeah.
So what we don't understand is they determine our value so that they can, I won't say exploit us, but so that it's a negotiating game, right? So if we don't know the value of what
we have,
they would take it more for free. So I feel like what is important for us
is the people.
Yeah, and that's why bringing it home to fashion is like it's an article like I need to be had with this day, and what I was saying about it is
amazing job with the interview.
What I feel is that we have to embrace our culture in the way that we dress.
Yeah, because you had said that our fashion is a beacon for storytelling, cultural
because,
identity.
like look at how like I will 80% of 90% of the work week I'll be in African attire because I feel like that is my identity.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like I need to walk into a place with like feeling like an African king. Right. If I'm going to represent my country internationally, I feel the need to
Present your heritage.
Yeah. So sometimes when I see some of our biggest artists get on the biggest stage and they go all Western, I feel like you're losing an opportunity here.
And so let me quote you. You said, my official corporate attire is African traditional wears. I wear them at least 5 times a week. Even with casual attires, I play around with African fabrics to create bespoke outfits that resonate with my cultural heritage.
Yeah.
So you would never be caught not wearing?
To be honest, depends on the setting, right?
Okay,
If there's a
that's
strict dress code, right? So
Yeah.
I'm someone that believes in adhering to whatever is required. But then if it's my call, 99% of the time,
You're doing you.
yeah. And to be honest, I feel more comfortable. There's also comfort level as well. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like when I'm trying to wear like corporate English wears, I have to think
Yeah.
about too much combination.
Do you understand?
But with my tribe, the
Does it
combination is
match?
there for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I like the simplicity of that. But then I also like, so another thing I feel about this fashion thing, so apart from the cultural aspect of it,
Yeah.
is also the economic aspect.
Okay.
Right? So imagine like the more you're buying African fabrics, spending on African designers, buying African products, the more you're improving the economy.
That's
Right.
true.
Cool.
So you're
like,
patronizing your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can't like, so for me it's like you can't be complaining how the economy is not great and you're
And you're patronizing out, made out of
so
the
for me, I
culture.
feel like yes, there's the cultural element as well, but it's also the economic, aspect as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very particular about patronizing indigenous brands, and that's another thing that I liked about Oyana when I first saw.
Yeah.
This is a very Nigerian product,
Yeah.
right? A very Nigerian service that is focused on even the languaging tells me that you care about, right? And we're not trying to pretend like we're someone else to sell heritage, sell language, and we're going by it. So yeah.
So you said something about patronizing more Nigerian brands. Can you name 2 or 3 Nigerian brands you're familiar, you patronize more often?
So
Let's give them a shout out.
so for fashion, I typically wear a brand called TBT.
Okay, TBT.
TBT.
TBT attire, so that's what I'm wearing now.
Okay.
For shoes, I would wear G. Carlton.
Oh, J. Carlton. Okay.
Yeah, G. Carlton's like it's a premium brand as well, and obviously Oyana as well.
Okay.
And to be honest, I love stories. I love brands that tell a lot of stories.
Through their brand.
Yeah, through their branding. I like, there's a salad place that I really enjoy in Abuja. It's called Movies. And why I like it is it allows you walk in and create your own salad
Oh, nice.
journey. So I like
Movies.
Yes,
Oh, I've been there. I actually eat
so-
their salads.
yeah,
like,
so-
So you take me there one time.
Of course I do.
Yeah, so- So I'm sure after they hear this, you hook them up with salads. But yeah, so I do like a lot of Nigerian brands, and I feel Nigerians need to be more proud of our brands.
Yeah.
Of course, yes.
Like we can't be complaining.
Every single
So
time.
here's another flip side, like where people complain about the quality sometimes, but the truth about it is, you have to realize that like the only way the quality would improve is if we keep on putting our money there.
Do you understand?
Yeah. So yeah, but I'm so much more excited. Another thing I feel like is changing now because of the exchange rate, right?
Yeah. So
People are
there's
starting
an
to
imbalance.
realize that like maybe
You may want
what
to.
we're looking for abroad is cheaper.
It's
to
Yes,
Actually,
but,
here,
but that's the
yeah.
exchange rate actually.
Yes, no, but what I'm saying is like I see it now as an opportunity for Nigerian brands to
To
step
grow.
up, right? Because another problem that like people that like quality have with Nigerian brands is like we're very comfortable with mediocrity.
That's true.
Like we're thinking, oh, it's Nigerians. And we
So
don't
they
show
wear
care.
anything
We don't care.
exactly.
We don't show
The craft,
respect
investing in yes,
to the
invest in the
customer,
craft. Yeah.
right? And I feel like if you care about the customer,
Then
you
you
want
should
to.
give them something.
Yeah, and I think it make the conversation so much easier if you ask me.
So, back to generation. What's your advice for the next generation? I mean, them watching this clip right now.
So-
We'll be old probably by that time.
No, do you know what I'll first start by saying? I don't know about me getting old, right? So maybe I would be getting older, right, with age, but I feel like my
It's the
heart.
same you.
Yes, like I want to be youthful.
You can.
Okay.
And I feel one of the things that I would say is like embrace your youthfulness, right? And understand that like life is a journey. Pace yourself, right? Part of what the issue is with a lot of generations younger is that you're looking at people without looking at their journey.
Do you
You're
understand?
looking at where they are right now, and
How they started.
That's one mistake a lot of people
Yes,
make. You know,
yes,
you
yeah.
want to get to somewhere, and then you don't want to go through the journey.
Walk
You don't
back.
want to hear what happened along the
Yeah,
line to get
yes,
into
yeah.
that journey. you
Yeah.
know.
So that's why for
Yeah.
me, part of what it is I do as well is like I like to talk about the journey as well.
That's
I feel it's
perfect.
important because part of why a lot of people are struggling is if you want to do any business in Nigeria, or you don't have people that you can look up to and say what processes do I
Did they take?
yeah. So I feel what I would advise is don't look at all the flash.
The flash
right?
thing,
The
yeah.
flash is it can be so deceptive, right?
Very deceptive.
Look more into the details. Do more research on the journey, right? Understand that the fact that you don't know it today doesn't mean you will know it tomorrow. And the fact that you know that you don't know it is an opportunity to know. And I'll just say as well is like, yes, I understand the need for more freedom of expression and all that, but try to always never forget your roots, because that's what will keep you grounded.
Yeah. So
That's
do we
really
feel
a good one. So try to never always forget
Your
your
root.
root.
Definitely.
That's something you should circle and then put it in your
Yeah,
head.
hold
you know?
on to
yeah,
your
hold
roots.
on to it. Yeah.
Do you think people who, like you said, try to work, those who actually work hard to get there, do you think they do a better job at showing people how they...
No, they don't.
Exactly. So people see things online and they believe, oh, this person actually did this, Because do you think people, because they don't see what they did behind the scenes, they are not necessarily, they just want a quick and faster route, way to get in it?
So I think
Do you
it's
think
like,
they should do more?
no, but it's two ways as well, right? So here's what it is. It's like, yes, on one side, the people that are doing the work do a better job at like promoting. That's what I try to do, right? Like that's why I'm very vocal. But at the same time, it's like you also have to think about the receptiveness of that kind of conversation. As a people, we're not very receptive to journeys or conversation about journeys. This is because of a couple of reasons since I found. One of the one is like we're obsessed with miracles.
Word.
Really obsessed.
We are obsessed with miracles.
Yeah.
So we are, so on one side we're obsessed with miracle, on the other side we're obsessed with the concept of blowing.
Do you understand?
So, so the problem is like when someone like me is, so one of the things when I started to talk about this, so some of my people say, so don't start it.
Do you understand?
Too much English,
Too much
too much
English.
English
Yeah.
aspect. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I feel like yes, the people in this position can do better, but as a people,
We can do
right,
better.
I think there's a need for a mindset shift, right? Because our society pressures people to do a lot of things they shouldn't be doing,
Really.
right? Even our approach to relationships and love is very transactional. We like it's getting very, very scary.
Very
Honestly,
scary, to be
very
honest.
scary. So what I feel is important for us is like, yes, people out there, if you're there doing something good, doing something great that people can learn from, it's your duty to put it out there. Not just for the fame or for anything, just to show people that it can be done. And as a people, I feel like we should be open to more of this kind of conversation, because part of why all those people don't put it out is like they don't get the traction that they want.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're very quick to once there's a gossip out or they're slandering
Well,
somebody,
That's
or,
it.
that's what we like.
Yeah, that's what we
That's
like.
what we like. So at the end of the day, it's like even the guys that are putting it out there,
They don't
are
care.
people listening?
People are not listening. That's the problem. When Chinedu asked about that and then asked your opinion on it, I picked something and I was like, you don't expect people to come and show you
The girl.
details about their journey. Why? Some people have tried it and they found out that people don't even pay
People are
attention to
interested.
it. So
Yeah.
They want a
everybody
miracle.
wants to see your success story.
Yeah.
Being successful is what everybody is. The flash that people want to see. Oh wow,
He's wearing that
this is the
wristwatch,
best.
he's wearing this,
Whoa,
he has a
well,
Benz.
I want this. I want that. I want this. Now nobody cares about the journey.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People don't even want to listen.
You know, I think we need to tell more original stories.
Stories,
Right.
yeah.
So I think
Do you think the media is interested
Yes.
in our story?
So
stories?
here's what the media banks on: audience and attention.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
So yes, they are interested in the story, but they're also interested in making money.
It makes him
See,
money.
And how do they make money? Through people's interaction and the audience they have. And unfortunately, right now in Nigeria, toxic sells.
It
Right?
really
All this,
sells more.
I see all this dragging
see people
thing.
and then you
Like
see
it's
a lot of-
it's very, very toxic. I feel as a people we need to do better.
and that's a threat to our system. It's a threat to the next
No,
generation.
It's really a
Yeah,
threat
and
to the next
it's one of the biggest threats to our mental health.
Yeah, because it's twisted.
Yeah, because part of what it does is like a lot of people are killing themselves, stealing because
Doing all
of
that
false
just-
narratives on social media.
Let me
Right.
shock you.
Mhm.
I saw a video on social media the other day. It was a video of a lady, it was a commercial.
Right.
And the commercial, you could see the luxury behind where she was standing here. And then you needed to look underneath, and then you see the other screen that tells you it's just a green room. It was a green room displaying lots of luxury. and all she had to do was just walk to one point to the other one. So I had to leave a comment. It's like Nigerians are killing themselves to own this luxury, to own this particular kitchen, to have this. By the end of the day, it's just make believe.
Yeah. Because if you work behind the scenes in media and communication, you know that like 80% or 90% of what you see out there is make believe.
And real.
And it's tailored to us. So what it is, like one of the tools in which they use is to trigger you.
Do you understand?
So the content is intentionally designed to trigger you.
Then there's a woman somewhere saying, I want that kind of kitchen. My house, the pressure on the man. The man is...
Do you know?
For you from
bringing into these conversations here about the make-believe kind of thing. But do you know the make-believe thing has really affected a lot? Even when it comes to workspaces. Like if you want to get a contract or something, first of all, people first watch your work in, and then they judge you somehow. Now, by the time they assess you, and you end up not getting the contract. So what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. So we like
you see, it's really eating
which is
up.
a problem.
It's really eating up. Yeah, and then that drags us to you being a marketing strategist or consultant.
Yeah, marketing. Yes, marketing, branding, communication.
Branding, communication. Now, flying into or diving into
okay.
branding. Now,
right.
This is where the conversation comes in. So, what's your mindset behind branding?
So for me, at the core of everything, stories. Right?
Okay.
So branding is, yes, there's physical aspect of branding in terms of like the look and feel, but I think branding is more emotional than we think it is.
Okay.
So what it is like people would engage with the product based on preconceived notion, based on perception.
Yeah,
of course.
So branding is what creates that perception. The deliberate intentional act of telling stories, using physical cues, using content, using imagery to create perception for customers, right? But then for me, I think branding is a bit deeper because you also have, for these stories to happen, right, you also have to create the experiences. Because these experiences is what people would use to tell your story for you, right? So I'll give a very funny or very important like narrative. Like I always use like, for instance, like the Apple products, right? Yes. The iPhone, for instance, right? People that are in tech world will tell you that like the iPhone is not probably the most
used.
Yeah, and it's not maybe the most in terms of tech and everything. It's like yeah. But what Apple has is a feeling that like anybody that uses that product feels they're in a certain class.
Yeah.
So what they are buying, what they are buying is not the phone.
It's what elevates
the class.
them.
Yeah.
So branding for me is how do you create that perception, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Some people go about it in cynical ways by creating false narratives, but I like to go about it from more stories and experience. Right. The more experiences that you have that are positive, the potential more positive stories you have as well.
Okay. So diving into talking about branding, I don't know why I'm so interested.
No, please.
When it comes to business and all of
course.
that, the first thing you check is branding. I've attended some lectures, conferences that talks about branding. So what can you say about the Oya Now brand itself? Like, how do they need to do better in terms of their services, consumer or customer perspective to say,
So I'll start from the physical branding. It's like the Oya Now logo, the black and yellow. In my sleep, I can see it. Right? They've been very consistent with that over the years. It's like if I see something similar, it's very easy to associate that. So I feel like in that aspect, they've done pretty well. Also in terms of the service itself. Right, so people think branding is just about this physical aspect. So what I also think about is how do they engage?
Lots of people.
Right, I probably have on my phone. I probably have like 3 Oya Now numbers. Right, so
and speed down.
Yeah, the process of the ordering, the conversation, the follow also adds to the branding as well.
Okay.
So from that, and that's typically stronger because when you're about to make a buying decision, it's those feelings you revert to.
Yeah.
The previous feeling, was it positive? It strengthens your willingness to go for it again. If it wasn't positive, the reverse is the case, right? Okay. And then also, if it's positive, there's a higher chance that you recommend and you refer
someone else,
right? So I would say personally, I've enjoyed the experience with Oya Now as well. But I do feel kind of like a lot of businesses, people
need to,
like that do great things. Sometimes we suffer from expecting the services and the products to sell for itself, right? So what you see is that like people that don't have the substance tend to be more aggressive with the marketing and the branding and the communication, right? Because they're trying to measure up or cover up, right? Meanwhile, people that have the product, sometimes they kind of rest on their laurels expecting the product to do. So I feel like Oya Now is great from a brand perspective, but then I feel there's an opportunity to connect with people,
To
which I feel
connect
this
with,
is a great
supposed to
this is a great
explore.
move for that,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you.
Okay.
So we are not
OyaGistme
just
Podcast.
because I look at the brand as a lifestyle brand. right?
Yes, it is
Because
actually. It's everyday, involved in our everyday.
so being involved in everyday conversation positions you more top of mind.
Yeah.
So from a branding perspective, I would say this is a brilliant idea. Also, I feel like no, I'm not even trying to like. I think they've been great with the people that hosted as well.
It's good to have
thank
you
you.
here too.
As well as like, to be honest, this is part of the perception, right? I can see the intentionality about the people they picked. You know, I haven't met you guys before, but then
Actually.
I can see why it looks like it was an intentional thing
Sure.
to pick both of you.
Really
So-
intentional
Thank
to
you
pick
so much.
us and intentional to pick you as well. Because
So
I've been
it's-
lectured today, from the start of the discussion. If you
Yeah.
notice, I was very quiet
Right.
because I was picking lots of things from what you were saying. So I've been lectured today.
Anyway,
I've been
it's
talking
been
too much.
No.
I mean, it's always joy when you share what you have.
No, of
Yeah.
course.
Get to
No,
learn.
we need to share more stories. I
Yeah.
feel like that is the opportunity that we have.
Yeah.
And I would just say this as well, it's like the rest of the world is profiting from African stories,
That's true.
right? And I feel Africa needs to do better in profiting from them. So, and how do you do that? Is you control the narrative,
Yeah.
right? Because when you travel abroad, you find out that like a lot of what people perceive about us
Yes.
have been created by people that don't have
Never
an
been
Don't
idea.
even
Never
have an
been here.
idea.
But then,
That's
but then
even
whose
the
problem
surprising
is
one.
that? If you that own the story,
Stories and telling
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And like, so that's why for me, it's like I try to tell my story with the way that I dress, with the way that I speak, and also I'll say this as well. It's like, so I'm from Delta. I'm a Warri guy, right? People meet me, I tell them my name. It's like, oh, no, like, you're not a Warri boy. Or I speak pidgin or whatever, and that's like, dude. To be honest, it's like a lot of people that I grew up with look like me. But you know what it is? Like a lot of the perception about people from where I'm from
That place, yeah.
has been created by comedians.
Do you
True.
understand? Because
Yeah.
I
Like all this
had to
Yes,
go to Warri.
yes,
I had to go to Warri, live there for a few months. I'm like, okay,
Do you know what I mean?
it's
Like,
not really what.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yes. So,
what
so
you're
what?
meant to be.
For my
The
point,
narrative is-
yeah. So what I'm saying is like I feel like we need to start to own our own narrative.
True.
We need to be intentional about the words that we use with ourselves, right? In terms of, and then from a mental health perspective, I feel we also need to be mindful about the most important relationship we have in our life is the relationship we have with ourselves.
Yeah, ourselves first.
True.
Be mindful of the kind of words you say to
You
yourself,
say.
how you speak to yourself, right? Because it's the way that
Self-love.
because people can read it.
Yeah.
When people see that you don't rate yourself, they wouldn't
They
rate
would
you.
Yeah.
take that. You'll take that.
When people, because to be honest, it's like at the end of the day, also from a business perspective as well, when you're promoting yourself, is
But
you
like,
don't
okay.
you don't expect anybody
To
to
promote.
put money on you when you
When
are
don't
not
put money
confident
on
in yourself.
Word.
True.
Do you know
Yeah,
what I
take
mean? So I feel it's very important for you to
So
be confident about what it is that you do.
Yeah.
So before a couple of years ago, I never used to say much about what it is that I did.
Yeah.
Right? I was very quiet. I don't like the spotlight, to be honest.
You're
Contrary
shy.
to what my social media might say, but then I realized that like I believe in what it is that I'm doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
I know that I'm doing what it is that I'm
Yeah,
passionate
you're
about
doing
it.
anything
So
wrong.
I wanted to give myself the best chance. And how
You
do I
did.
do that? By letting people see,
Of
right?
course, and they have
And
to be
also
aware.
from a thought process perspective, not just the optics, right?
Yeah.
Like people connect more with how you think.
True.
So people would say, "Oh, I like the way these guys think," right? So I want to be in the same kind of space
It's
with
with
them.
them.
Him, yeah.
Like I like the way these
That's
guys
room
think,
for
so I
growth.
want to see what product he's buying. So that's how we need to show more about that,
That's
and I
right.
feel like that gives us a better branding opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jakpo. Quick, it's been good having you here.
Yeah, really been amazing.
Thank you so much for
Thank you so much
having
for-
me.
We hope to see you next time. We hope you
No,
come along
really,
and share
yes.
more
We need to
insights
have
and then-
conversations. We
No,
need to
like,
have these
I'm-
conversations over.
If you want him
and
to
over.
come back on the show next time, don't leave a comment and say, yeah, I want him back.
Seriously.
No, we'll definitely have conversation, and I wish you all the best.
Thank
I
you
like
so
your
much.
So
initiatives.
much.
I mean, I like what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Very gracious host. You know
Thank
what
you
I
so
mean?
much for being
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning into this particular episode of OyaGistme Podcast. We did have Jakpo Therayven in the house today, and he did amazingly well. We'll leave,
Yeah,
we
amazing,
leave you
yes.
guys to put your comments in the comment section. Tell us what you think and who you would like to see sitting on that chair in the next episode. That's about what we have for you guys today on OyaGistme Podcast. My name is still Chinedu.
Then I'm Meglina also.
Yeah. See you next time.